Imagine turning your boring factory radio into a giant tablet that floats off your dash, gives you wireless CarPlay, crisp navigation, and big-screen Netflix vibes on road trips. Today, the countdown is on to the 7 best floating screen stereos that actually feel like an upgrade every time you start your car. Number 7. Audio CM9. The Audio, a budget-friendly floating screen stereo that tries to give you that big screen experience without a big price tag. The CM09 is a single DIN style unit with a large touchscreen that floats in front of your dash, giving you more real estate for maps, music, and calls than the typical old-school double DIN radio. In use, that extra screen size really does make basic tasks like following navigation or changing playlists feel more relaxed, especially if you are upgrading from a tiny OEM display. For casual users who just want something that looks modern and gives them Bluetooth audio and hands-free calling, the CM09 checks the basic boxes pretty comfortably. Once you start actually living with it, though, the compromises become pretty obvious, and that is why it sits at number 7 on this list. Touch responsiveness is acceptable, but there is a slight delay when swiping between screens or jumping into settings. And you notice it the more you use it in traffic. The interface feels very generic Android head unit, with icons that work but do not have the most polished look, which is okay at this price, but clearly behind the more premium models later in this countdown. Audio options are there, but tuning is basic compared with the advanced EQ and DSP you will see in higher-end brands. Connectivity is another area where the CM09 feels a bit behind the curve. 6. Alpine ILX F511. The Alpine, also known as the Alpine Halo 11, which is where the list steps into serious brand name territory. This unit features a massive 11-inch HD capacitive touchscreen with a 1280 by 720 resolution that looks incredibly sharp and vivid in person. The floating design mounts on a single DIN-style chassis, but can be adjusted vertically and in angle, so you can fine-tune the position to avoid blocking vents or buttons while still enjoying that huge display. Daily use feels very tablet-like, with smooth swipes, crisp icons, and a clear interface even in bright daylight, thanks to the anti-glare coating and high-brightness panel. Where the ILX F511 really shines is smartphone integration. You get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, letting you just get in, start the car, and your phone connects without plugging in. Voice assistants like Siri and Google Assistant are deeply integrated, so asking for directions, sending messages, or changing music is fast and reliable. Alpine also includes support for high-resolution audio and advanced sound tuning, so if you pair this with good speakers and an amp, the system can sound genuinely premium. That said, there are a few reasons it stays at number 6 instead of moving higher up. First, price. The ILX F511 commands a premium, especially compared with some competitors that also offer wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, and a big floating screen. For many buyers, especially those upgrading older vehicles, that extra cost may not translate to a dramatically better experience compared with slightly cheaper top-tier competitors. 5. Audio CVS 520A AJ. The Audio is a more refined take on the budget to mid-range floating screen formula. This single DIN unit comes with a large rotatable touchscreen that can be adjusted vertically and horizontally, allowing you to fine-tune viewing angle and avoid blocking important controls. The ability to rotate the screen is especially useful if you are switching between navigation and media views, or if glare from side windows tends to hit your screen at certain times of day. It instantly makes older dashboards feel far more up-to-date, even if your car never came with a factory nav option. Feature-wise, the CVS 520AJ brings the essentials that most modern drivers want. You typically get support for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto through a wired connection or smart mirroring, letting you run maps, calls, music, and messages through the big display. Bluetooth connectivity supports hands-free calling and audio streaming, and menu layouts tend to be simpler and more intuitive than the ultra-cheap generic Android radios. The screen is responsive enough that taps and swipes feel natural, with only minimal delay compared with more expensive flagships. The audio experience on this Haudio model is also a step up from bare-bones budget units. You can expect an onboard EQ with multiple presets and manual tweaking options, plus subwoofer support so you can integrate an aftermarket bass setup. While it does not reach the depth of Alpine or Pioneer DSP systems, it is good enough for most people who just want solid, punchy sound with some basic tuning freedom. 4. PLZ MP106. The PLZ, a 10.1-inch floating screen stereo that has gained a lot of attention for packing a surprising amount of tech into a very accessible package. The star of the show is its large IPS touchscreen, which delivers good viewing angles and vivid colors, making maps, album art, and videos look genuinely nice compared with older resistive displays. The interface feels smoother than you would expect at this price point, with swipes, taps, and menu transitions that are more polished than early-generation budget Android radios. One of the MP106's strongest features is connectivity. It supports both wired and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, giving you the flexibility to choose how you connect your phone. That means you can hop in the car and have your favorite navigation app, Spotify, messages, and calls available without plugging in, yet still fall back to wired when you need faster charging. Bluetooth 5.3 with an independent module and extra antenna provides stable connections and clean audio for calls and streaming. Audio performance on the PLZ MP106 is impressive for this category. It features a built-in DSP, a 10-band EQ, and a 4.2-channel preamplifier with up to around 240-watt peak power output, plus dual subwoofer outputs for serious bass. That combination lets you fine-tune the sound to match your speakers and cabin, whether you like a flat audiophile response or a bass-heavy setup. For many users, this level of tuning flexibility and power would have required a much more expensive unit just a few years ago. 3. Atotozone A5 LG110T. The Atotozone brings a more specialized adaptive floating design that is ideal for tricky dashboards. This unit pairs a large floating display with an adjustable mounting system that lets you slide, tilt, and offset the screen to work around vents, knobs, and bezels. In practice, that means you can install a big screen in cars that normally would not play nicely with standard double-DIN units, especially older models or dashboards with unusual layouts. If you have ever worried that a floating screen would block your hazard button or HVAC controls, designs like this solve a lot of those issues. On the feature side, the A5 LG110T offers modern essentials like Bluetooth calling, music streaming, and smartphone mirroring via wired connections or specific app-based integrations. It gives you a familiar grid-style interface with quick access to navigation, media, phone, and settings, so you don't feel lost coming from a smartphone. Audio controls are more capable than the most basic budget units, with EQ adjustments and support for external amplifiers, making it a solid option if you plan to expand your sound system later. The floating screen itself is bright and large enough to make navigation and media use enjoyable, with reasonable touch responsiveness. While it may not have the ultra-high pixel density or HDR-like punch of the most expensive head units, it is more than good enough for everyday driving, especially at its price point. 2. Pioneer DMH-WT8600NEX. The Pioneer, a digital multimedia receiver that focuses slightly less on giant size and more on premium functionality and polish. It features a 6.8-inch capacitive touchscreen with a WVGA 800x480 resolution, smaller than the massive floaters on this list, but still a nice upgrade over stock systems. The screen is responsive, with multi-touch support for pinch-to-zoom and smooth scrolling, making the interface feel like a modern smartphone rather than an old car radio. Where the DMH-WT8600NEX really shines is in its connectivity and audio tools. It supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, often in wireless configurations depending on region, giving you full integration with navigation, calls, messaging, and streaming apps. Built-in Bluetooth 5NX handles hands-free calling and music streaming with solid reliability, and you get support for high-resolution audio formats like FLAC and WAVE via USB. For serious listeners, the built-in 13-band graphic EQ, time alignment, and switchable crossover modes allow very fine-tuned sound setups. Even though its screen is not a huge tablet-style floating slab, the W350NEX fits into the floating screen family through its flexible, L-shaped single-DIN style chassis that aids installation in more vehicles. This design lets installers work around factory trim and limited space while still getting that larger, more usable display out front. Paired with steering wheel control adapters and iDataLink Maestro compatibility, it can integrate deeply into modern vehicles, retaining factory features better than generic Android units. 1. Pioneer DMH-WT8600NEX. The Pioneer, a true flagship floating screen stereo that combines a big display, serious connectivity, and powerful audio tools in one package. Front and center is a 9-inch capacitive HD touchscreen with a 1280x720 resolution, delivering crisp text, sharp map details, and vibrant album art that looks more like a tablet than a traditional head unit. The floating design mounts this display on a single DIN chassis, letting you install it in a huge range of vehicles while still enjoying that big screen look. In person, the screen feels responsive and premium, with swipe gestures and taps registering instantly. On the connectivity side, the WT7600NEX is loaded. It supports both wired and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can connect however you prefer without sacrificing features. Built-in Bluetooth supports hands-free calling and audio streaming, while onboard Wi-Fi enables wireless phone integration for those advanced smartphone features. There is support for Amazon Alexa, HD radio, SiriusXM compatibility, and a wide array of media formats through USB, including high-resolution FLAC and DSD files. Audio tuning is classic Pioneer NEX territory, very powerful. You get a 13-band graphic EQ, time alignment, crossovers, and 6-channel 4-volt preamp outputs, giving you all the control you need for multi-amp systems, front stage upgrades, and subwoofer setups. For people who care about how their system actually sounds, this level of tuning and clean 4-volt outputs makes a big difference compared with budget screens that only offer basic bass treble adjustments. Final thought, that's all for today, folks.